Hello, I'm Sophia Lou and welcome to my channel.
Hello guys and welcome to my review on the Touch 5 markers. You can get these markers from pretty much most websites. I got these off eBay, and these Touch 5 markers, they're pretty much on most websites, but I'm going to compare them to my Pro markers as to that's one I've got that's fairly similar. The first thing I do, as always when I get new markers, is I colour swatch them, because most of the time when you get markers, the actual colour top doesn't match what the colour says. And some of these colour names were extremely interesting, but the colours didn't quite match what the name was. For example, the pastel blue was more of a sky blue than a standard blue, and the pastel pink was a very vibrant pink. I know you can get a lot of these markers from all over different websites. The reason why I chose to review these is because the set that I got, the set of 80, was only, it was just under £30, which is roughly around about $35 to $40 depending on what the conversion rate is. It was an interesting time I had with them. Personally, I think the colours on these are extremely vibrant. I think the markers are excellent quality for the price that you're paying. These markers were actually pointed out to me by a friend, Rebecca Blackwell, and I know that she's going to be posting a review on her channel soon as well. So the first thing I did was the line work, and I scanned the line work in and printed it out on the same paper, so they're both on mixed media paper, so that you know that the paper is the same quality and that they're being done with the same thing. So I've already coloured one, and this is my Pro marker example. I didn't film this one because I didn't think that this was as important as a Touch 5 marker. Just showing you what the barrels look like in comparison to each other. So the Touch 5 markers are quite a square shape, and as well it has two ends. It has a chisel nib end and it has a bullet nib end. There is a brush marker version that you can get, which I believe is called the Touch Free. I'm not entirely sure off the top of that, but I know that there are two different versions that you can get, and I chose bullet nib because I'm better suited with bullet nibs than I am any other marker, to be honest. I actually prefer bullet nibs over brush markers because I find that I can blend better with them. So the first few troubles that I kind of had with these markers is I really struggled to blend with them. And normally with alcohol markers, what I like to do is I can put like a darker colour down and then put a lighter colour on top and almost like saturate the colour to the point where it blends the marker much better. Normally what you would do is you would build up the colour layers in between, but the matter of fact is sometimes you just don't have the colours that are in between, so you aren't able to build up the layers and do it that way. It's the same with most dark layers. If you saturate the colour on top enough, that you are going to get it to bleed through slightly and create a different colour that you might not have in your repertoire. I can easily do this with Pro markers. It's not a problem. I don't have to saturate it loads, and it just creates a really nice effect. But for some reason with the Touch 5 markers, it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. So I'm going to list a few pros and cons here. Pros: these markers are extremely cheap. And considering the price, because I got a pack of 80 and you can get a pack of 160, considering the price per pen, it is an extremely cheap alternative to alcohol markers. If you are looking to try out alcohol markers but don't have a massive budget, these markers would be best for you. I will be leaving links down below if you are interested in checking them out. I believe I'll leave Amazon links because I know that everyone will be able to have access to Amazon more than they will on others' websites. The other thing I found with these is that the colours were really bright and vibrant, that I didn't have an issue with like the colours on it at all. It's just a really beautiful and colourful. I did have a few issues with the ink quality, but we'll go into that into a bit. The other thing I found, I think it might have been the set that I just bought, but I didn't really have much in the way of skin tones. Like the skin tones that I did, I wanted her to have a dark skin tone anyway, but I either had like a very, very light, almost ashy brown, or a very deep brown, and it was very difficult for me to choose a colour so that I could blend it, considering my original plan was that she was going to have a very, very dark skin tone, and then I would lighten it up by putting the slightly lighter marker on top to create shading. But considering I realised that that wasn't going to work, I had to choose a lighter skin tone instead. This is why it's always important to colour swatch and colour test markers before you actually go on to them with a final piece, because you never actually know whether or not they're going to work. Price, fantastic. Okay, so my cons. They do feel quite cheap, if I'm honest. The barrel is square, and that's just a personal choice for me. I don't like square barrels because I find them quite awkward to grip. They just felt a little bit uncomfortable in my hand, whereas the Pro markers have a round barrel. Also, the two ends are exactly the same on the top of the barrels. So for example, on my Pro markers, you have a pointed end to show that that is your bullet nib, and then a squarer rounder end to show the chisel side. And that's just a personal preference, to be honest. These are just mainly personal preferences. And I kept on opening the wrong end. Speaking of opening the end, I found that when I sometimes opened the chisel end, it was very difficult to get the lid off, and it would shift the nib when I opened it, and the nib would just come out slightly. But I read on the website that you can actually get replacement ink for this, so the reason why these nibs may shift is because you can replace the ink, or you can replace the nibs on these, which is a very cool idea for replaceable markers, but it felt like it wasn't put together properly, and I just felt slightly off by that. Okay, so ink quality. Some of the inks were absolutely beautiful and they covered the paper perfectly, but certain colours, for some reason the paper was speckling through, and I'll show you what I mean by the side-by-side comparison. So when you compare them side by side at a distance, the colours are both very vibrant, very colourful, and definitely worth investing in. If I had to buy markers, I would go for my Winsor & Newton markers. Not because I'm sponsored by Winsor & Newton, mainly because I think I just prefer the way the barrels are. I don't think they're particularly expensive. They are expensive in a range of like markers, but what I'm going to show you here is, like, can you see how the blending happened on the wave there? And that's by me saturating the colour on top, and you can see how vibrant the colours are side by side with each other. But when I show you the wave on the Touch 5 markers, you'll see what I mean by blending. Can you see how easily I managed to get the same-ish colours to blend, whereas with the Touch 5 markers it was much more difficult for me to be able to do that. And as well, speckling was happening on certain colours. So the speckling is when the paper is showing through on the marker. That can be to do with like you oversaturating the paper, but I found that even after one stroke the paper was speckling, and as well it warped my paper. So considering this is the exact same paper, I find it weird that my Pro markers, I was putting the same amount of colour in, but the Touch 5 markers were warping the paper. I didn't quite understand that, but you can see how the speckling's happening here, and that is just to oversaturation. But even if I put one layer down, it was still doing that, and that might just be because the markers are quite juicy. So I hope this review has been somewhat kind of helpful. If you are interested in the markers, I'll put a link down below, and I've also got a link down for the Pro markers. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Maybe like, comment and subscribe if you wish to see more content, but as always folks, stay creative.